sitting with David Koretz, the CEO and president of Mykonos Software. And before that, before he was age 30, founder of 6 other companies. Is that right?
That's right.
And he's an expert in coding and Ajax and web application development. And so we've been talking, and one of the major themes David brought up was a gap between what's secure and what's being sold on the marketplace these days. Is that a good place to kick off?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think there's an interesting chasm right now where you've got a lot of products that have been built on the idea that the gap in security industry is just not enough data, and that there's a bunch of employees that just need more data to do their jobs. And I think that's a fundamentally flawed assessment. I think the problem you have right now is it's too much data, not too little, that's creating the problem. And a lot of that is the wrong data. So, you know, the best example I can give you is antivirus, where you've got 20 years of market experience, you've got 50 million signatures, and yet it seems like every day you've got a new spear phishing attack that went right around all of the antivirus programs that were there. So it seems to me pretty obvious that signature-based approaches to security and huge amounts of data collection are probably not the right approach. And the security industry needs a reset in its thinking about how it might go about protecting threats that are both adaptive and threats that are more and more sophisticated than ever before.
And you mentioned that it's not just piles and piles of data that's being collected, but the skill that someone being able to interpret that data.
Yeah, you know, I was always taught that if you try to build something for experts, you're always going to find that the world doesn't have enough experts. And I think in the security industry, you have a lot of really smart people at these companies that are doing their best, but they're working with a set of tools that are overwhelming them with data and not providing a lot of actual value in terms of day-to-day functionality. So my problem is you can only look through so many log files. There's only enough hours in the day. So I think you need to start working on solutions that are changing their approach so that you're not passing the buck off to your customers to say, I'm just going to hand you a lot of data and it's your job to look through it, because they're not trained in web app security for the most part. And even to the extent they are, looking through hundreds of thousands of rows of log files, trying to get to the right place is never going to get you there. And you're always going to be fighting yesterday's attack.
And so what can we do about that? What's the solution? You're mentioning training, going back to the college level.
Yeah, I think there are probably 3 things that need to be different in the industry that aren't happening today. The first is we need to start educating our students coming out of universities in a different way. Right now, your computer science and software engineering programs at all the leading universities include almost no or none security training, and that needs to start getting much more sophisticated. The second thing is your IT programs need to start also teaching applications, because all of a sudden these web applications that are being deployed at every single company are exposed to 5 billion devices, and the people that are managing them, keeping them running, and trying to secure them don't have a lot of application or web application training. So I think you need a lot more cross-pollination than you have today, and that's on the industry, on the education side. I think on the industry side, I think we need to understand that attribution at the IP address level is nearly useless. And we're going to start having to think about how do we do attribution down to the device level, and how do we do it in a way where we can understand what device is attacking us rather than what IP address is attacking us, because it's just not a reliable form. And I think the third thing, and probably the most important, is we need to change to certainty-based security models. Because if you want to block a threat, you need to know for sure it's a threat. If you have false positives, you're going to end up attacking your own customers. So the big question for me is, how do we build products that are designed to be able to be 100% certain enough that they can actually respond and be proactive? And the industry is not designed around that today. And when you talk about no false positives, immediately you get laughter from everyone in the audience, because there's a presumption that that's just not true. And I think the industry has been misrepresenting itself as being able to achieve that for a long time. And you know, I think 20 years in antivirus, I think it's pretty obvious that that's not going to happen.
Right. And you mentioned to me before that you were on the board of the Rochester Institute of Technology, and you were advocating working with them to improve the training of security at the very basic level.
Yeah, so I sit on the board of the School of Computing as well as the board of trustees at RIT. And, one of the first things I did when I joined the board was start advocating for some of this cross-pollination to start happening, and for RIT to lead the way in being able to build software engineering, computer science students that had security training baked into the curriculum, and IT students that really understood web applications as well. And so Mykonos actually donated appliances to RIT so that inside of the classroom, their students can start hacking, they can start counter-hacking, and they can start seeing the impact of application security on the network ecosystem and the application ecosystem they're eventually going to be managing and building. And so the intent is to try to get them some of that training.
Okay. So you're still working with the administration to get that?
Yeah, we've donated it. They're starting to use it in the classroom this semester. So this will be a brand new thing that the students will now have this application security training as part of their core curriculum. It's a relatively new partnership. I think we, or I should say I, have broader ambitions that one of the things that we'd like to see is, could we build an institute around starting to track some of the web app attacker data differently than we ever had before? Because it's almost comical, but the largest survey and study of web application attacks has less than 500 hackers in it. And that's the biggest study the industry's ever done. That's the one everybody quotes. And so I think we need to start getting a much more global view of what the problem looks like, because I think we're seeing way too small a slice of it and probably a very dated slice.
Okay. And with that, I think we're going to have to wrap it up. My thanks to David Koretz, the CEO of Mykonos Software.
Thank you for having me.